Prevention.
The only way you can have your best chance of recovery is to be in the best possible nutritional status and lead a healthy lifestyle. And I think we all know that Americans don't do that.
In a nationwide study, researchers found that on a typical day, fast food was the main food source for 29 to 38% of children.
When I interview families for the first visit, I'm trying to get a picture of how well the child eats, because I want to get a picture of nutritional intake and nutritional status, and then I do testing to determine exactly what those things are, whether they're mineral deficiencies, vitamin deficiencies, protein deficiencies, and to the best of my ability I correct those, which usually involves healing the gut, because in my practice 80% of children with autism have significant bowel disease.
I'm classically educated. I did my residency at Tufts. I've done 2 fellowships, one at Harvard and one at Tufts. I'm not an alternative practitioner, but once I saw children improve, I couldn't turn my back on it. Once you know the truth, you can't walk away.
When you look at what are the various biomedical treatments for our patients, we basically start with cleaning up the environment, and then we go to cleaning up their diet. There are numerous products in their diet that could be harming them. For instance, hormones in the meat that they're eating, or pesticides and herbicides in their food. But we found one particular type of diet extremely helpful for our patients, and that's a dairy-free and gluten-free diet.
How do her therapists, her teachers feel that she's doing?
Since the diet, everyone has remarked she's just a new kid.
Today, a small but growing number of doctors are offering their patients natural biomedical treatments for autism, giving parents approaches to recovering their children previously unavailable.
9 months, 10 months away from kindergarten, so we do have some work to do.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm noticing a huge rise in cow milk sensitivity in children. Now, it's not just allergy. It's not the typical hives and wheezing and skin rash. They're more subtle signs. Insomnia, restless sleep, inattention, lack of focus, bedwetting, burping, gas, belly distension, lots of gas, diarrhea, mood disorders, behavioral problems, a lot of these more subtle changes that look more like sensitivities rather than the full-blown allergies.
The casein or gluten-free diets, these are really regarded as the elimination of allergens. That the casein, the protein that's in milk products, the gluten that's in many wheat products, that those particular proteins, some kids are allergic to them. And by allergic, I mean that they have an inflammatory response in their intestine when they have those things in their diet.
It's really important to look at removing all the other junk. So that's one of the first things I really recommend to parents is get out the artificial colors, the artificial flavors, the preservatives, the MSG, all of these compounds that overload their detoxification system and overload and start to impact on the brain and create hyperactivity and inattentiveness. So that's one of the first things I usually recommend is getting all that artificial stuff out of the diet.
Because our knowledge of the biochemistry of what's going on in autism has exploded over the last 10 years, parents are left being scientists using their child as the control in many ways. And I always recommend they start new interventions one at a time and document any positive effects or negative effects.
Parents are discovering treatments. They're finding ways to help their children. They're working together with a whole set of open-minded clinicians. They're finding that therapies doesn't need to be a drug. Maybe you can find a diet, a new kind of diet that will help your child, that certain kinds of foods exacerbate the immune problems that are hurting these children, and the removal of those foods can make them feel better, can make their guts work better, can get rid of diarrhea and constipation, which make them available to learn.
From the medical perspective, at least from our perspective on the GI end, we think diets make a difference for a good number of these children. And it's been our experience that at least any number of children will do better on a milk-free diet or some other dietary restriction.
I make very strong recommendations to parents about changing the diet. And many of these parents look at me and say, "You've got to be kidding me. You want me to take away milk, cheese, yogurt, ice cream, sour cream, soy products, dyes, preservatives, additives, food colorings, MSG. You want me to limit the amount of flour and sugar and cereal and bread, pasta, crackers, cookies, pancakes, waffles, donuts, muffins, pretzels, bagels that they're getting? What are they supposed to eat?" Every parent that's able to go with the changes sees some difference in their children. Again, we don't know the limitations of these children, but little by little, as we peel the layers of an onion, we start to see these children emerge, and we really can get in there and take care of them the way they most individually need. And these children do really well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Jax.
After taking Jackson to a biomedical doctor who told us to take like everything out of his diet, everything. And I remember thinking the doctor was crazy. And within 3 days, he had his first normal bowel movement that he had had in over a year.
I can remember my husband urging me to initially go gluten-free, casein-free, GFCF. And no, I'm not going to do that. And it was with much reluctance that I decided to try the diet. He liked bagels and cream cheese and pancakes and macaroni and cheese and pizza. You know, you put gluten and dairy together and that was his diet. So I pulled everything. And he had 2 weeks of, he literally cried 24 hours a day and I just didn't give in. And in fact, it was sort of like at my husband, like, I'm not, see how awful he is? And at the 2-week mark, you could just see the fog lift. You could see the eye contact come in. He stopped crying so much.
What's this? A wheel. That's right. A wheel.
He had perfect stool, stopped scripting, graduated occupational therapy, and then we redid a test. No bacteria. He had a bunch of very bad bacteria in his stool. His yeast was off the chart, plus it was just so bad. No yeast, no bacteria, and the levels of intestinal inflammation were 5 times the high end of normal, were down in the normal range. The speech teacher said, what happened? You know, what's going on? All of a sudden he was engaging in speech, and literally he took off like a rocket at that point.
You got to heal the body. Now we buy organic fruits and vegetables. We limit any type of things with dyes in it. The body has already been damaged by so many toxins and mercury and what have you, that these children are so ultra sensitive. You know, and I see it with my own child that if he eats something that's got a lot of chemicals in it or dyes, it sends him off the edge. I think that diet is so important. I mean, you know, I can't say enough about it.
I didn't even know what gluten was, and I went to the store the next day and said, I need to know more about the gluten-free, dairy-free diet. And they suggested that I call this person that had a recovered child, and she talked to me for 2 hours, and she took me through the store and showed me exactly what to do. And in 28 days, he was talking. We were in the floor. He had 4 packs of flashcards around him, and I said, Christian, you have to help me clean these up. And he said, Mommy. And he looked at me in the eye, and I said, yes. And he said, lighthouse, wave, ocean. And he named all 40 flashcards. And I was like, thank you, Lord, we're on the right track.
Our diet was pizza, McDonald's, lots of soda, potato chips, dairy, a typical American diet.
A little while, buddy. Still.
Now we're totally organic. We've eliminated all dairy. We eat fish occasionally. We have nuts, seeds, organic fruit, a very healthy diet and lifestyle now.
That's a simple thing. There's no money in a diet. There's no pharmaceutical company that's going to pay for trials or going to pay for a press campaign to advertise, you know, a special diet. But the parents find that these are the things that are most helpful. Most of the things that parents are doing are simple things. They're embracing, you know, a different lifestyle. They're turning away from psychotropic drugs and pharmaceutical interventions. They're looking for ways to restore gastrointestinal health. That's not complicated. It doesn't take expensive therapies or prescriptions, but it takes a change in their way of life.
I mean, there's certainly cases where we've just changed the diet in a child and their autism is gone, or their ADD is just simply gone.
I had a child in my office last week, and he was not even sitting up 6 months ago, and he's 2, almost 3 years old now, and he was running up and down the halls talking back to his mother. And he was nonverbal and not sitting up. And it was all nutrition.